My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to present my vice presidential candidate, Mr. Jeb Bush.
Thank you. Thank you. My fellow Americans, this country is at a crossroads. It has been since the beginning. It is a crossroads of ideologies. The first of this in America was the birthing of the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. With disagreement throughout about the role of government, all seemed lost. But there was one thing which kept this country from shambles: compromise. It is the compromise which gave this country our Constitution, a document most sacred in our government. It is compromise which gave my country the greatest core values it can ever have. My fellow Americans, in this time of civil unrest, compromise is what we need the most. Senator Sanders and I have taken the first step and come together as running mates in this election. And now it is up to you, as the citizens of the greatest country on the planet, to take the next step. Thank you. Are we taking questions, or? All right, I'm ready to take questions if anybody has any. Yes.
How did it feel when Mr. Sanders approached you to become vice president?
Well, I was certainly a little surprised, but I was also excited by the idea of a bipartisan White House. Yes?
Without Mr. Sanders going off on his rant about, of course, campaign finance reform, how do you plan to have an effective White House when you are deeply divided on almost every issue?
Well, you see, also, I would like to say we're not deeply divided on almost every issue, as you may imply. But I was please still talking. May you please not interrupt me. Thank you. Anyway, I believe that Mr. Sanders and I, we are both people who can find respect in each other, and we're willing to find compromise. And we understand that 50% of the country feels one way, and approximately 50% of the country feels a different way. So we're willing to work together to find compromise in the middle. Yes?
Mr. Bush, what would you say to Bernie Sanders recently coming out about how he's against your proposal to raise the age for Social Security?
Well, I certainly respect his decision, as I would respect anybody's, and that's another thing that we would be willing to talk about. Yes?
How would you respond to Senator Sanders' statement? He said, this is a quote, "I have a hard time understanding what Governor Bush and his billionaire backers live in." What world Governor Bush and his billionaire backers live in?
Well, Senator Sanders, he may feel a little strongly about things. He may have some interesting wording, but we've talked about that. There's no ill feelings, and he will simply try and help put me in a perspective, and I'll try and put him in a different. We'll find some place in between. Yes.
I was wondering, if you have to talk about every issue, don't you think that might be a little bit harder to get things done, since most candidate groups are not having to feed each other answers and constantly reach compromise?
Well, in democracy, we typically talk a lot. And I think it's better to talk and to find compromise in what the entire country wants than to be together on one issue but only represent a part of the country. Yes?
Do you feel that once elected you'll be sort of not going along with the mandate for your elections by sort of realigning yourself from the Republican Party by compromising so much with a candidate that has no correlation to the party you belong to?
Well, I do not believe that I will be de-aligning. I believe that I will be working together, and I will compromise. And I think that I am still a Republican. My party is very important to me. That being said, I'm willing to work with Senator Sanders, not surrender to him. Yes?
So you keep saying that compromise, you mention it in your speech a lot, and you keep mentioning it in your answers. But when you say compromise, I'm not really understanding what you're planning on doing specifically. So could you give me an example maybe of a plan that you and Mr. Sanders have maybe for an issue that you're planning on compromising on, and how you would go about doing so?
Certainly. For example, minimum wage perhaps. Mr. Sanders and I, we feel differently about those two. We feel differently about the topic, and He felt that we needed to mandate a very high raise. I felt that that would risk the economy, so we worked together. And we're currently working on the idea of incentivizing businesses with tax cuts for raising their minimum, or raising the wage that they give to their employees, which would allow them to keep jobs while simultaneously allowing their workers to have a proper living wage. Yes?
How would you plan to fund that?
We would have to work on tax cuts, and they're in the same way that we would be planning on funding Mr. Sanders' $1 trillion job plan. We're going to have to look through the country's budget to find the money, but we will if we are placed in office.
All right, we're going to end on the note that the word taxes just came out of Jeb Bush's mouth, and mic up